Dollar. Dirt and money, no soul. Had to go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack and flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money long, get my team strong. Let me run away from my problems.
Yep, what's good, original crew, man? We're back. Hey, man, we're back on the channel. We got another balling for us today. Today's video, real footage of fun turned deadly. What's that about, see? Hey, but with that being said, before we get into it, make sure y'all check out the links in the description box.
Down below.
You already know where to go. If you want to first support, all you got to do is check out down below. Also, if you enjoyed today's video,
knocking it with a thumbs up.
Hey, man. Also, shout out to the comment of the day.
Shout out to you.
You forgot. You forgot, didn't you? I ain't forget.
I didn't forget either.
Stop the cap. But hey, let's go. Let's check it out. Let's see what's about. You ready? All right, let's get it.
Today, I'm going to share 3 progressively more disturbing stories that each have a famous, or I should say infamous video that is associated with that story. And so after I tell each story, you'll actually get to see all or parts of those videos. But before we get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place, because that's all we do, and we upload 2, 3, even 4 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please sneak into the like button's house and replace all of their toilet seats with homemade cardboard ones. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's stories. On the morning of January 3rd, 2013, a 33-year-old man named Vladimir Sherbov stepped off a cable car at a ski resort in Russia. He was standing on the top of a snow-covered mountain, along with his friend Denis Barakov and Denis's wife, whose name was Yekaterina. Vladimir and Denis went to this resort all the time, usually to snowboard. But on this day, they were not here to snowboard. They were here to try out an exciting new ride that all their friends had been talking about recently. It had been Denis's idea to come, but Vladimir had been totally on board until now that he was actually seeing this new ride itself. So the ride was actually set up straight ahead of them at the very top of the beginner's ski slope. Now, where they got off from the cable car, it wasn't literally the very top of the mountain. It was like most of the way up. And when they got off the car, basically there was an additional stretch of mountain going up, not particularly steep, but that stretch from, the cable car to the top of this additional stretch was the beginner's slope. And so from where they're standing, having just gotten off, they'd be looking up, this beginner's slope. And the ride is right there. It's basically on that slope. And Vladimir, who's looking at the slope, he's looking at the ride, he could see the ride operator standing at the top of this slope, basically waiting for customers to go on this ride. But to Vladimir, it was kind of weird because, there wasn't really any signage for this new ride, and there was no line of people, at least that he could see, waiting to get on. And considering all the hype that Vladimir had heard about this ride recently, he'd expected something much bigger and more well advertised, where he could, potentially get up here and watch loads of other people do it first before he did it. And so suddenly, Vladimir couldn't help but have just sort of a bad feeling about this. Like, why isn't anyone else doing this ride? Like, what's going on here? And so he turned to his friend, Denis, and he said he had a bad feeling, and he really wasn't sure if he wanted to do this anymore. But Denis was like really excited about this, and he begged Vladimir not to bail on this yet. And, Vladimir could tell that Denis really was very excited. He wanted to try this ride, and he didn't want to do it alone. And so Vladimir was like, all right, fine, like, let's go do it. And so Vladimir, Denis, and Denis's wife, Yekaterina, they walk from where they got off the car all the way to the top of this bunny slope. And again, there's no line for this ride. It's just this operator sitting up there waiting for anybody who wants to do this thing. And so the two men, they go up and they paid $10 to the operator, who then in turn said, okay, climb inside, because the riding compartment, if you will, could hold up to 2 people. And so both Denise and Vladimir climbed inside. And after they did that, Denise actually handed his phone off to his wife, Yekaterina, and he told her, take a video of us. I want to see, what this ride looks like from the outside. And so Yekaterina, she's got her phone. She's like, okay, and she hits record and she's filming. And then, Denise and Vladimir, they got tucked up fully inside of the compartment. The operator ensured it was ready to go. And then they were off. Now, back inside the ride, once this thing had actually begun, Vladimir was actually pretty happy he had agreed to go because this was actually really fun. He was positioned in the riding compartment basically directly across from Denise, who, clearly he too was having a great time. He was laughing and screaming, and having a great time. But after just a few seconds, the ride seemed to change. It suddenly jerked to the left and then began going faster and faster and faster. Now, Vladimir and Denise had obviously never done this ride before, so they didn't know how it actually was supposed to feel. But Vladimir felt like there is no way this is how it's supposed to feel. This is out of control. We cannot be going this fast. This is dangerous. And so as Vladimir is really starting to worry, he looked over at Denise, who's only, a couple feet away from him, and he was not laughing and smiling anymore. He looked genuinely frightened. But before either men could really do anything at all, not that there was much they could do, the ride took one more horrible lurch, and then it just kind of slammed down hard, and then everything went black. It would turn out Vladimir's bad feeling he got when he first looked up at the bunny hill and, saw the ride basically unattended. No one was in line, no one was doing the ride. How could that be? His bad feeling about that was spot on because the ride was not safe at all. In fact, it wasn't even legal. The operator, the one who actually put both men inside of the ride, had stolen the equipment that was the ride and then set it up in this wildly dangerous location with no safeguards. So this ride that the two friends were on was really just a giant inflatable ball called a zorb. The idea, for this ride, for this experience, was that the riders would climb inside of the zorb, almost like a human hamster ball, and then the zorb would roll down the mountain like a huge slide. And it was supposed to be safe and fun, but it was not. And that's because the mountain that this ride was on was just way too steep and way too rough. This was a tragedy waiting to happen. And so as Denise's and Vladimir's zorb went flying down the hill, it bounced a few times and then just totally veered off course. This is the video that Denise's wife captured from the top of that bunny hill, basically capturing their entire descent. You can see at some point one of the workers try to chase after the zorb as it clearly just rolls away, but they can't keep up with it. And then in the final frames, you can see the zorb speeding towards a cliff. The zorb did ultimately go flying off that cliff, and as it plummeted through the air, Vladimir and Denise were ejected out of it. Vladimir was severely injured but would survive. As for Denise, unfortunately, he was killed. The ride operator was arrested, but they were given just a 4-year suspended sentence for the incident.
Wow.
4-year suspended sentence, so now you can go to jail. That's no prison time.
That's nothing, bro.
Whoa.
Rest in peace to Denise.
Bro, why would we do that on a snowy hill? Now, I don't know if you, people do that on, snow. But in my mind, because I've seen those. You know what I'm saying? You get in, if people push you around and stuff. Cool, whatever. Typically, it's on a flat plane. Mm-hmm. But to do it on a hill? An icy, slopey hill? That doesn't even make sense, bro.
That's sad.
And Vladimir, he said he had a bad feeling. Tragic.
That is tragic.
On April 22nd, 2025, an Indian tourist named Rishi Bhatt pulled a helmet onto his head at the top of a zipline platform in the Baisaran Valley, which is a meadow at the border of India and Pakistan. It was a very beautiful, sunny day, and way down below him, he could see crowds of people strolling around and having picnics on the grass and enjoying this awesome spring weather. However, as the zipline operator fastened the belt and rope around Rishi's waist, something started to feel off. The operator was a local man who looked pretty normal and unassuming, but he had been weirdly silent the whole time Rishi was standing in line. And it seemed like he was sort of preoccupied with something. And considering his job and how potentially dangerous it just seemed like this should be his focus, getting people on and off this ride. But instead, Rishi noticed that this operator kept squinting down into the meadow really intently, like he was watching someone or something down there, but Rishi would look down and there was nothing down there that was unusual. So he couldn't understand why this operator was so fixated on whatever was going on down there. It just seemed like a normal day. And so by the time Rishi was told, like, he's ready to begin the ride here, he sort of felt like he didn't know if it was a good idea to trust this man with his safety. It just seemed like his mind was totally somewhere else. But Rishi had just watched a bunch of other people who had been, suited up by this guy, successfully navigate the zip line without any problems. And so ultimately, Rishi just sort of brushed off this budding anxiety inside of himself and just told himself he has nothing to worry about. This is going to be just fine. And so Rishi, when he was finally ready to go, he looked over at the other side to the other platform where he would eventually end up, where his wife and his 11-year-old son were, and he waved to them, sort of signaling he was going to start. And then he pulled out his phone and he hit record on the camera, and then he put it on his selfie stick and he sort of held it out, and then he jumped. And as you can see on Rishi's video, the first few seconds that capture him sort of beginning this ride, he was totally exhilarated. He's flying through the air over these breathtaking mountain views. The sun's on his face. He's laughing. But after about 20 seconds or so, Rishi heard that same zipline operator shout something from behind him. And so Rishi, he turns around and he looks back at this operator, who again is sort of like fixated, looking down at like the meadow below. And he's clearly looking at something down there really intently, like he had been, but now it seemed much more urgent. And so Rishi looked from the operator down to the meadow as well, and what he saw was horrifying. He saw all these people who just moments before had been having picnics and having this just like nice casual family time. They're all screaming and running off into the trees. And at first, Rishi just couldn't understand what was happening. But then, like all the other people in the valley, he heard this terrifying noise. And suddenly he knew what was going on. When Rishi reached the end of the zip line, he immediately ripped off the belt around his waist and he grabbed his wife and his son, and they began to run. Here is the video that Rishi took that day. So the people below him, as he starts down the zip line, were mainly tourists, like Rishi and his family. And most of them, like Rishi, were from India, the country that actually has control over the area where that valley is located. And here, you can see them all start to run. What you don't see, and what we are actually blurring out here, are the 4 anti-India militants who suddenly opened fire in the valley beneath Rishi. The terrifying noise that Rishi and everyone else heard was gunfire. And the shout that Rishi heard from that sort of distracted zipline operator, well, Rishi would come to believe that that had actually been a call to action for the militants to begin their attack, like the operator was in on it. Rishi and his family would survive this attack, but unfortunately, this was a massacre. 26 people, almost all of them Indian tourists, were killed.
Wow.
That is devastating.
What the fuck? That's why he was like, yeah, come on.
And so distracted and just look, cause he waiting, he making sure everybody.
Is it a distraction or not giving a fuck? Cause his mission.
Well, not giving a care, but also trying to make sure that everybody
he was focused on what he felt like he was supposed to be focused on, and that was to make sure everything is set up in line.
That is so evil
for what they had planned.
I don't get it. Rest in peace to
so many.
26.
26, so many, man. Devastating.
Yeah.
On the afternoon of February 20th, 2014, 27-year-old Sarah Jones walked toward a bridge that was way out in the woods of Wayne County, Georgia. The film crew that she worked with was setting up on the bridge and on the banks of the river nearby, and Sarah could also see the director pacing around, looking really stressed and kind of jittery, and was clearly barking out lots of orders to everybody around him. And Sarah was also feeling pretty stressed herself. But she took a deep breath and she told herself she just had to make it through a few more hours of this and then she could go home. So Sarah was a camera assistant, and for the longest time she'd worked in television, but recently she'd been hired to work on a movie, and the movie was being shot out here in the woods. And this job was going to be very different than what she was used to. But not just because it was the difference between movie and TV. No, it had to do with budget. So this was a movie, that was sort of prestigious in a way, but it was going to be a really low budget movie that was called Midnight Rider. And the director sort of seemed like a total mess. He kept changing his plans like all the time, especially at the last minute. And today, he had just begun outright lying to the crew. Just that morning, he told the whole crew, Sarah included, that they were heading out to this location in the woods just for a quick camera test to make sure the lenses and the lighting were right, but they weren't going to be doing any real filming. This was just pure testing. But once they got out to the bridge, the director sort of inexplicably changed his mind and said, actually, you know what, forget the test. We are going to do real filming today. We're going to shoot the whole scene for this bridge today. And this was like a really weird thing to lie about. And Sarah just didn't understand what this guy's problem was. It just seemed odd the way he was going about this. But now, it was almost 4:30 p.m. and Sarah was carrying a bag of camera lenses over to the bridge to hopefully set up for their final shots of the day. And on her way, she happened to pass by the makeup artist, whose name was Joyce Gilliard. And she noticed that Joyce had a very strange expression on her face. And so Sarah stopped and actually asked Joyce what was wrong. She's like, you look worried, what's going on? But Joyce just shook her head and said she had this funny feeling that they really were not supposed to be here. But, just a minute later, Sarah had changed the lens on the camera and she was looking through the viewfinder, and this is what she saw. The cast and crew were on this narrow bridge made of wood and metal, and there was a rickety metal hospital bed right in the middle of the bridge. It was a prop. The scene was supposed to be this dream sequence about the main character's dead brother. So the actor playing the brother was lying on the hospital bed, and the actor playing the main character was standing a little further down the bridge with a guitar slung over his shoulder. And so once everyone was in their places, Sarah passed the camera to the cinematographer, and he hoisted it onto his shoulder, and the director called for the crew to start rolling. However, at the same time, there was this deafening roar and a blast of loud noise, and Sarah felt this deep vibration through her whole body. And it was so disorienting that at first, she couldn't even tell what direction it was coming from. But when she turned around, she saw the director motioning frantically for everyone to get off the bridge. And so Sarah slung the camera bag over her shoulders and tried to run, but the bridge was so crammed with people and equipment and props that she couldn't get through. And before she knew it, that horrible sound was on top of her. It would turn out Joyce was right. They weren't supposed to be there that day, but not because of anything spooky or superstitious. It was because the film crew literally was not legally allowed to be shooting a movie on this bridge. So that was the reason why the director had changed plans that day and lied about what they were doing. Because his application for a permit to film on that bridge had been denied that morning. But he knew if he told his crew that it was denied, they wouldn't then be okay with going out there and doing it anyways. And so he just sort of didn't tell anyone and sort of forced the crew to do it. He tricked them all to do it, basically. But it's like the director and his crew, they're out there on the bridge, the cameras are rolling, they're about to film this final scene when disaster strikes. And the disaster that strikes was entirely predictable. It was literally the thing that this permit was denied because of. It was to avoid this type of disaster. Here is the last footage ever shot for Midnight Rider. You can see the actors and the crew scrambling to get themselves and this hospital bed off the bridge, and you can hear the roar and the blast of noise.
You know what? Fuck the bed. We all could have made it if you make sure we get the bed, make sure we get the bed. No, make sure everybody get off live. Yeah. Because we too busy trying to get the bed, it's slowing up the process of everybody.
You should have never lied and should have never been out there in the first place, putting people's life at risk.
Little bed off the bridge,
it's so selfish,
and you can hear the roar and the blast of noise. Sarah is actually just out of frame. She's right behind the person who's holding this camera. And you can see right here the specific reason why the permit was denied. Because this bridge was an active railroad track, and there is literally a train barreling down on them. In the last few seconds of this footage, you can see the camera sort of tumbles. That's when the crew members who could not make it off the bridge in time instead pressed themselves up against the metal girders, trying to get as small and as sort of skinny as possible to avoid being hit by this train. But Sarah, unfortunately, was not fast enough. When the train came screaming by, it hit that hospital bed, and a piece of debris from it flew towards Sarah and pulled her back onto the tracks, directly into the path of the train. She was killed instantly. The rest of the crew that were on the bridge that day would survive, but a few other crew members were injured. As for the film's director, who put his whole crew in this awful situation, he pled guilty to involuntary manslaughter for Sarah's death, and he was ultimately sentenced to 2 years in prison.
2 years for a low
2
budget.
years for a low budget ass movie, and somebody took some.
That
What
took
are you
somebody's
talking
life,
about?
bro.
See, I be trying to refrain from saying certain. Rest in peace to Sarah. That is so.
Devastating.
To say the least. Yeah.
But hey, man, y'all spam us up in the comments. Y'all let us know y'all thoughts in the comments for us down below. But until next time, y'all know how it go, man. I do go by the name DJ New Kid Assist.
Cee Nicole.
We are.
Kid and C.
We are.
Ain't no time to kick it, got a stack of flip for my foes. Dollar, 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 dollar. Please